These are the required points to express in your ad. Feel free to paraphrase and speak from your own experience. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you. So, it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And please make sure, this point, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Do you know the spelling of anchor.fm? ANCHOR.FM. Thank you for your listening. See you. Hello everyone, I'm Richard Gon of Work to Live podcast version. This time, I'd like to talk about that. You don't have to speak out perfect English. And I think the majority of the listeners of my podcast are native speakers of English. But some of you don't. I know some of you don't understand, or some of you don't. You do not speak out English natively. And as you hear, or as you know, I don't use English natively. And in the case of my mother tongue is Japanese, and why I'm speaking English is because I live in a population decreasing society, which means the population of my country decreases year by year or every year, which is why I was concerned about that. I was concerned about that. The future of this country is not that bright. Well, the future of this country is really dark, which is why I began to create contents in English, so that those contents can collect viewers or listeners or some other clients on the internet using English language. Because the population using English do not decrease that sharply comparing with the population of my country. Which means in the case of my country, the population of the users of Japanese language decreases. However, I'm speaking English, and I don't know whether you think my English is good or bad. I think my English is really bad. But actually, you don't have to use correct English. Of course, using correct English is better, or using correct English is really a great stuff. But when it comes to thinking about using your own mother tongue, maybe most of you or all of you do not use your mother tongue correctly. For example, in the case of my mother tongue, there is a word, for example, すごく美しい. And in the case of, and translating what I said, that means, extremely beautiful. But, some people say すごい美しい, and they are translating which the meaning is extreme beautiful, which means, two adjectives are connected, and which is not correct in terms of my language, and of course that is not correct in terms of English language. Connecting to adjectives, and one explains the other isn't correct. In the case of the example I introduced, in that example, adjective modified adjective, or adjective modified adjective, which is wrong in the case of Japanese language, and which is wrong in the case of English language. Like the example, I think this is the case too. The example is the case, or the example is applicable to every language, which means native speakers. I think most native speakers do not use their mother tongues grammatically correctly. I mean, native speakers aren't concerned about, or native speakers aren't conscious about their own grammatical mistakes when communicating using their mother tongues. So, considering which, when it comes to speaking foreign languages to themselves, it's natural that they don't use their foreign languages correctly. And so this is, if you, maybe most of you, or some of you study English, and some of you use English as a foreign language. But you don't have to. I don't think you have to. I don't think you have to use English correctly, because even when you use your mother tongues for communication or conversations, I don't think you are using grammatically correct language, which means even when, or if you can't use, or if you don't use your mother tongues grammatically correctly, it's natural that there are many mistakes, there are many wrong stuff in the grammar of English language you use. Considering which, if you are afraid of, for example, if you are afraid of speaking English, and the reason is that you can't speak out perfect English, I don't think that reason is correct, because, or I don't think that reason is decent, because I don't think you can use your mother tongue grammatically correctly. Or if you think you are using grammatically correct language, or if you think you use grammatically correct your mother tongue, please tell me. And I don't think that I think if you can use grammatically correct your mother tongue, I think you are one of the exceptions. I'm sorry, but I'd like to tell you that you are exceptions if you think you are using grammatically, if you are using your mother tongue grammatically correctly. So in most cases, or in most human beings can't use their mother tongues correctly, which is why most human beings who study English as their foreign language, in the cases of those speaking English as a foreign language, they can't use perfect English, which is natural, quite natural. That is what I'd like to say in this episode. And I don't know all the languages on the earth, but in some language, modifying adjective might be correct in some language, but I don't know what language besides such modifying adjective is correct. But so, because I don't know all the languages, so the conclusion is that, as I said, you don't have to use correct English, or you don't have to use perfect English. That's it. This is all of the story of this episode, and thank you very much for your listening. See you.